I want to thank Tonya for doing this. I've been following her on Instagram for a while, and I also have her book right here, How to Survive Today, which I feel like is very appropriate in these times. I think the first time I wrote to you, I told you I was going to get your words like tattooed on me, and you still responded. So I thank you for that. Really came across a little strong, but I'm a big fan. So I am thrilled to have you here. For those of you who don't know, Tanya Ingram is a poet, Cincinnati native, Bronx-bred introvert, mental health advocate, kidney transplant hopeful, lupus legend, cat auntie, and lover of Tom Hardy in The Office. And she's been on stages at the Getty Museum, Madison Square Garden, like 1,000 other places. Not gonna be all. Um, and yeah, your poetry and your words are so creative, and I really enjoy it. I feel like a lot of wellness stuff that I see online today is a little bit cliche, but somehow you frame it in a way that really resonates with me, and I think a lot of other people too. So I love it, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And people can feel free to put questions in the comments. I'll try to moderate a bit. Don't want to interrupt you too much, but yeah, I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it possible if I can share my video? It says when I try to start video, I can't because the host has stopped it.
Oh no, okay. Let's see. Now.
Yay!
Sure.
Yay! Okay. Hi everyone. Thank you so much, Sarah, for that awesome introduction. Hi everyone. My name is Tanya Ingram. As Sarah mentioned, I am a poet, an author, mental health advocate. I call myself a lupus legend, amongst other things. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you all a little bit about the genesis of How to Survive Today and what that means for us now, a book that was written pre-pandemic, pre-2020, but holds so much weight for our lives in this current moment. But before I get into that, I wanted to read a poem that's not mine, but is one of my favorite poems and really inspired a lot of what's in How to Survive Today. And that's a poem by Lucille Clifton entitled Won't You Celebrate With Me? So I'm going to read that and then get into my process in the book. Okay. Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model, born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. So that is probably quite literally one of my favorite poems ever. I think it's the last line that really gets me about this idea of things that are supposed to kill us or supposed to bring us down, supposed to weigh us down, but they failed. And this really inspired a lot of what is in How to Survive Today. And I know this is the, sorry for all that sun. I know this is the Small Press Fest. And so the book is actually published by Wild Awake Publishing, and I'm their first client, first author, and it's led by Jenny Armstrong. And when we thought of the idea for the book, or when I thought of the idea for the book, I wanted it to be more than a poetry book. So I've had 2 books prior to this, and I just thought that as a reader, I want something different when I engage with poetry. I want to be able to, one, see myself engage, be able to get personal and intimate with the work. So we wanted it to be a part poetry book, part journal, part affirmation, part resource as well. And so in the book, we have poems, traditional poems, but we also have spaces for you to write, like a journal, what you took away from that chapter. We have affirmations like I deserve to be whole, or I am loved, repeated in the book, so that this whole idea of how to survive today is basically how to get through a moment that may be heavy. And so the book is broken down into 3 sections. One, dealing with heartbreak and how to get over that. The second, dealing with just self-care. And then the last one, self-love. And then the last part is healing and then joy. And a lot of what's written is based off of what I've been through. I only write from my own personal experience. And so that is pretty much the idea of the book. But it was written pre-pandemic, like I said, and what I'm finding now is that it's incredibly relevant to many people during this very different time we're living in. And this whole idea of self-care has now elevated and has now amplified to mean so many different things as we're trying to navigate life. and I can break that down into so many, but if you're alive in this present moment, you know what I mean. It's a lot that's happening. And what I hope for the book is that it'll speak to people where they're at, that it meets you where you're at, that it's the friend to listen, that it's the hug you need, that it's the affirmation to get by, that it's the reminder that if you can't leave your bed today, that's okay. It is meant to be there for you, and it's meant to help us find our way. What I'm finding is that self-care has also become this kind of buzzword, again, as we're living in this time. And what I appreciate, Sarah, what you said is that this doesn't feel like that, like cliche. And I think that's only possible because I'm writing from a very personal perspective. And I think the personal allows us to enter in. If I can speak from my personal experience, I allow others to enter and engage with their own stories. I think that's the responsibility of the poet or of the writer in general, like speak from your personal so that you can then invite the world in to be able to, 1, relate, and then 2, tell their own stories. The whole purpose of this book is not for me to say, look, I have all the answers. I don't. I'm just telling you what I went through and how it helped me so that you can now do that for yourself, which is why we have it as a journal. Write down the things that you want for yourself, the affirmations that you need. And it's that kind of exchange. The book is truly a conversation between 2 humans who are struggling, who are trying to find their way, who are still figuring it out. And I think that's the beauty of poetry and of what I get to do as a creator. And and I think with that said, I'll read a couple of poems and then I'll jump back and forth in that kind of forum. But I'll start with the first section, which again is this whole idea of how to deal with heartbreak and how to get through, whether that's like with a lover or like, with friendships or family. How do you deal with that kind of heartbreak? The first poem I will share from that is how to invite yourself to fall in love again. How to invite yourself to fall in love again. Give your body a name it deserves. Carve the dream into a tree, the dream you keep returning to. Be the tunes that remind you of road trips and sand in between your toes. Study your stretch marks. Call each line a victory, a life you won. Bathe in glitter and no fucks given. Hit snooze on insecurity. Tell anxiety it can't sit with us. Devour what you crave and release expectation by the wig. Buy the Taco Bell, buy the gift of being okay with the lonely, channel your inner Rihanna, stay hydrated, allow space for the weeping, allow yourself the whole phase, allow acceptance to be its own parade, plant something, write a lullaby to the rain, to the sound of washing away, of letting go. Call the homies and preach about the day you learn how to love yourself again. So a lot of the poems in the book are how-tos. which started off as just kind of like playful, like ways to like get through moments. And then I realized that I kept writing these how-tos, and they became how to deal with anxiety, or how to be single, how to be alone, all of these poems that I needed in the moment. You know, I needed to learn how to be alone, how to get through a depressive episode. And so the book is truly compiled of all these like little notes to myself, and that I'm finding are truly helpful for others. So that was how to fall in love again. I also, while creating this book, we also created this 30 days of self-care challenge, a free kind of supplemental material for those who maybe couldn't get the book or at the time, but we still wanted to invite people to engage with themselves. Writing books, like I love it, like doing this, and sure it's for profit, but like my whole thing is like, how can I let people know that they're not alone? Like that's just my life's mission, and whatever I do, I can do it through poetry, I can do it on Instagram or whatever, but how can I truly let people that what they're going through is not an isolated thing, that there is community in other people. Sorry, I have a cat tapping on my shoulder. That you're not alone. And so we created this 30 days of self-care challenge that is free and online, and I invite you, if you'd like to engage with it. It's on my website at tanyaingram.com. It's downloadable, 30 days. You can start when, hey Jackson, you can start whenever you want. And I just wanted to put that out there as an invitation, because again, this idea of self-care is more than a buzzword. It's truly like, how can I take care of myself? How can I not become swallowed by the noise of the world? And even if I am being swallowed, how can I take care of myself in that balance, and not guilt myself, not shame myself, but trust that I'm human, and that it's okay to feel things and to navigate through those feelings, and to know that I'm not alone in that particular feeling. And so there's that. I will read another poem speaking to that as well. And this poem is entitled How to Be Strong. I think there's this idea that we're supposed to be strong to like get through these moments, but I'm kind of like against that idea. I think it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be human and be a mess, because I think that's where we get to where we need to be as a growing people. So this poem is How to Be Strong. How to be strong. Don't be a hot mess, an ugly cry in the emergency room, the third rejection letter this week. Ruin your makeup while weeping over the unpaid parking ticket, the overdue phone bill. Download OkCupid immediately after the ex you met on OkCupid leaves you. Borrow a shoulder to lean on and a Spotify playlist to lose your voice to. Find a bubble bath after dialysis. Find a cute dog after an anxiety attack. Find your name after you were called out of it. Write a love poem to the day you could not get out of bed. Laugh at the negative balance in your bank account. Be bold about your fears, about the diagnosis, about the day you thought you would not make it. Strength is an occupation, a marigold in dust, a thing we cannot see when the world is ending, but a reminder we keep when we survive long enough to see that it has not. That's how to be strong. I wrote that poem in particular after I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed with lupus when I was 22, but at the time of this poem, I was put on dialysis because my kidneys had failed, and I was in the hospital and like felt as if, I'm 20 something years old and I feel like this is just too much. And so this whole idea of like people saying, just be strong, you'll get through it, felt like it wasn't helpful. And this whole, and I was trying to understand what that meant. And so that poem really came out of this idea of like, I don't have to be strong. I can go through this and be human, and be human and feel all parts of this. I'm human. I'm gonna feel the bad days and the good days. I also am a person who lives with depression, and that's another, part of me that has to tell myself, like, there will be days when I can get out of bed, there will be days when I can't, and one is not, at a higher regard than the other. Both make me human and okay, and so this, I just wanted to share that and give you background as to why I wrote that. And again, a lot of these poems are birthed from this life that I've lived, that allows, I think, other people to enter into my story, because I'm allowing myself to be honest in my story. Okay, the next poem I would like to share is How to Start to Believe You Are Enough. I think when I, again, think about self-care and surviving today, I think a lot of that has to do with my self-esteem and like how I believe in myself, and if I believe in myself, and what does that even look like, And so I wrote this poem, a list of things to like really examine what it means to believe in Tanya, on the days where it's difficult and on the days when it's really easy. So this is that poem. Sing your favorite song loudly, softly, like it is gospel. Whisper into the resting of your palms, say magic, and the thoughts of your ex will disappear. Drink water, plenty, enough to make an ocean of your brilliance, enough to fill the room in which you forgot it was alive in you. Dance in a T-Rex costume, in the middle of a flash flood, without shoes, but with an enormous amount of heart. Say fuck you to the running of anxiety. Say yes to the inhale of self-forgiveness. It is medicine. It is comfort, unlike the kind you received from a selfish love. Write a poem, not for the audience, but for the construction of your breath, a to-do list for those who forgot our worth. Call up the homie. Tell them it is a celebration, a reunion. Tell them today is shit, but you are a head nod to the sky, a force unshakable. Write a note to worry. Tell it staying is not an option. Taking anything with comedy spilling from its story. Be okay. Be okay with not being okay. Go to the mirror, close your eyes, say your name softly. Say it again. Like Missy Elliott is featured on the track, like trauma is in the back seat today. Open your eyes. Repeat. That is How to Start to Believe You Are Enough. And I'm seeing some of the comments, and I just wanted to chime in. I think Sarah Johnson also shared about being diagnosed with lupus at 21. And I want to say thank you, Sarah, for sharing that. And that diagnosis really ties into this book a lot, because being diagnosed really changed my whole world around, and the idea of like, why was I writing? What was the purpose of being a poet? And I really had to examine, like, how can I use my work for a good that's greater than me? And so, Sarah, I just want to say thank you for sharing, because that means a lot to me. Lupus is a disease in which the body attacks itself, and under certain amounts of stress, it can really trigger a negative reaction. And so self-care, bringing it back to that, is truly, truly important for like my survival. Like, in order for me to live healthy, I need self-care. And so that's why for me, it's more than like a cool buzzword we see on the internet. Like, it's a way of life. And I think poetry is one channel in which I can express that self-care. Poetry is a form of self-care. Writing, journaling, all of that is a form of self-care, to just remind myself that like I deserve to be here, that I deserve good things, that I deserve to be loved and to be seen and to be validated. And so the books and the poems in this book are just reminders of that you deserve to be seen, you deserve to be heard, loved, celebrated, validated. Like, you deserve all of that. And I think we're living in a time Just yeah, where I feel like a lot of the world kind of is weighing down on us, and like, or weighs down on me, and there are days when I'm like, am I seen, am I loved, am I validated? And so it's important to, even for me, to come back to my own words, to remind myself that you are worthy, you know, you deserve all of these good things. um yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna read some more poems. Sorry if the sun is like smacking me in the face here. But thank y'all for
It's
hanging
giving you a very dramatic effect that I love.
out. Okay. Okay, cool. I love drama. Drama is great. All right. This poem is actually the title of the book. It's entitled How to Survive Today. It's the small things, the extra fries at the bottom of the bag, the 50% sale off everything, the nail not chipping each time you drop your phone and there is no crack, the bass of your grandmother's laughter, Cardi B getting her entire life, going through checkout and your card not being declined, a hot shower, someone to text, stretching your back, making no time for the bullshit, the brows, no longer sisters but twins, the dinner you don't have to pay for, the DJ playing the one song you've been singing all day, making it home safely, the symptoms finally quiet, the doctor with good news, the house to yourself. It's the small things, a construction of hope, a house of abundance, everything good greeting you at the door and welcoming you home. That's how to survive today. Um, At this time, I do have a couple of more poems, but if people have questions, I'd like to like weave that into the talk as well. Also, feel free to, as Sarah said, leave some in the section, and then I will address those. Um, but yes, this book has truly become something more relevant because of 2020. I wrote this not knowing, obviously, any of this life would happen, but it's been really special for it to mean so much to so many during this time. So I just wanted to state that. Um, I'll give you a little um, just tour of the book. There are moments in the book that I share photos of myself. Again, this book was written based off of things I experienced. I had a relationship that didn't work, and it really like, tore me apart. And I had to go through it. And I think again, a lot of these poems weren't written in like in the moment. I think as a writer, as a poet, I truly value experience as a teacher. I think experience is truly the first draft of a poem. You go through it, you feel all of the emotions, and then you're able, I think I'm able to then articulate or process, or not even process, but just be present to what it was, be a documentarian to the work, be a, observer, and then maybe go back again and like do some more digging. But this book, I'm just really grateful that it means something to people. I'll read another poem with that said. This poem is entitled How to Be Alone. Find a book, a story made of escape, a story to widen the smile, leave the headphones behind and wander. Wander into the thrift shop, the flower shop, your heart shop. Spend too many hours in Target, price your favorite lamp, and come back to it. Let it be a reminder that you are worthy of light. Learn the meaning of your name, the one you want to be called. Find a forest and a moment to give thanks. Daydream without restriction. Fart. Sing your favorite Broadway musical off key. Buy a balloon and write about a romance that left you breathless. Then let it go. Make room for a new memory, for a piece undeniably yours. Build a fort. Welcome your insecurities. Tell them to rest, to take a break. Pray for a loneliness that does not hurt. Pray for a loneliness like a stream, like a cuddle, Like the last time someone broke your heart, but not your story. Alone is not a chorus. Alone is an encore we give ourselves to keep from fading. That's how to be alone, which is an interesting poem, I think, to sit with, as I think so many of us are alone in this like digital world where we can't be in space together. I can't go home and see my family because of certain health restrictions. So I think, again, this idea of being alone is truly one that needs to be investigated. And again, going back to self-care, how do we take care of ourselves in this age? Like, what does that look like? And I can list many ways that self-care is relevant or what self-care is, but I truly think it's a self journey. For me, self-care is putting on like a Missy Elliott playlist and like going to my mirror with my headphones on and literally just dancing. And I'm not the best dancer, I promise you that. I'm not just saying that to be humble, like I'm not, but I don't care. And so I just go to my mirror and I just do my thing. Or it's cuddling with the cats while watching like RuPaul's Drag Race or like Bob's Burgers, like on repeat. Like I can't find I'm unable right now in this moment to watch anything that doesn't bring me joy. Like if it's a drama, something that's super heavy, like I just can't give it. I can't get into the story. So that's something for me. And I'm like, oh, okay, I need joy. I need something that's light and funny and just carefree. Drinking tea, like peppermint tea, is perfect. It like truly calms like my soul, just my presence. Taking a walk. I can't do much physically, but being able to just walk around the neighborhood and be outside and remind myself that even though we're in a pandemic and we're isolated, I can still have access to nature and the world in my own way. Writing is a form of that. I'll be honest, like I haven't been writing as much because it's been hard. So what the other ways that I find myself being creative is like watching, again, TV, or maybe journaling or doodling or coloring, finding other ways to engage, talking to my grandma, best self-care, because her laughter is just, I wrote about it, it's like gold. Like I can't mimic it. I don't want to make fun of it because it's just so beautiful. And those are just small ways that I engage. And then there are days when I really can't leave the bed, and self-care is then I'm going to order food delivery, and that's okay too. I may have the strength to just brush my teeth and then literally jump back in bed and take a nap. And all of those, again, are self-care rituals that I take part in. But for others, that may be going to the beach, that may be exercising or meditation or yoga or whatever, and all of it is okay. It's truly a self. Yes, talking to grams are the best. Shout out to grandmas. It's all self-care. I made myself a pot of like chili the other day. I'm not a cook. I feel like the only thing I do well is write poems. Like I can't cook, can't like dance, can't do a lot of things, but I attempted and it was good enough to eat. So I was proud of myself that I was able to act in self-care and feeding myself. So these are all ways that we can engage. And I invite you to like figure out what it is that brings you joy. I think it starts there. What makes me happy? That's truly the first question in self-care. What makes me happy? And without judgment, like don't judge yourself or try to restrain from self-judgment in terms of what that means. If like twerking in your mirror brings you joy, and that may sound silly out loud, like try to not judge that, and accept and just be, and give yourself that space and give yourself permission and invite yourself to your own healing, because I think self-care leads to our healing. I think as a person who's living with an autoimmune disease, self-care is allowing me to heal. Going to therapy is a form of self-care for me, and I'm just truly grateful that I can, every day I'm learning more and more about myself. I think, again, self-care is not a competition, because one person's doing all of these things, that's good for them. But your journey is your journey. Your story is your story. So what works for you? What works for me may not work for you, and vice versa, and that's okay. Because that, again, makes us human, makes us unique. And investigating those ideas of how can I be good to myself? How can I be kind to myself? How can I tell my story? I think are all beautiful, beautiful ways that we take care of this vessel, of this mind, of this heart. And again, like I'm saying all of this, but I'm coming from experience where like I wasn't always this aware of myself. And this again comes with my story of being diagnosed with lupus, or of going through intense depressive episodes, of often feeling alone and rejected and insecure. And I'm not saying all those have been wiped away and I'm like magically cured over here. No, like I still struggle, but that's okay. Like I've learned to embrace my struggle. I've learned to embrace my mess and get intimate with my fears so that they don't overpower me. I sit with my fears. I'm afraid to do this thing. I may fear to speak in public, but that's okay. I'm going to sit here with my peppermint tea and that self-care as I engage. But I'm learning how to treat every aspect of me as self-care. Like from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, all of that is learning how to survive so that one day it's not just survival, it's truly just living, it's truly just thriving. But to get there, I have to take it day by day. And in a time like this, I think taking things a moment to moment is the best that we can do. And there's no need to guilt ourselves for that. There's no need to like compare ourselves. If all you can do is true, and I mean this, if all you can do is just bare minimum, whatever that means, that's okay. That's truly okay. That's how you're surviving today. And again, back to the book, that's where that was birthed from. Pre again the world, but I in a weird way I appreciate that it again gets to have a new meaning for our world now and for people in the world right now. So yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the big takeaways I got from you. I think, like, learning self-care isn't always necessarily like sitting in a bubble bath with wine and chocolate, but like doing things that you don't want to do, but also not guilting myself when I feel like I can't,
Yeah.
go do a workout or whatever. Um, but I've been made aware that there are some questions over on Facebook Live. I've been looking at, but now I am. Rachel asks, what is your writing process?
That's a great question. Thank you, Rachel. My writing process is quite weird because it changes very often. I think again, what happens for me is I'll experience something, and I'll sit in those feelings, and then I'll maybe jot down like the idea, either the last line of the poem or the first line of the poem, and then I start to fill in from there. That's one way I write. Another way I write is I'll listen to certain music, usually something classical or like very emo, I guess is the word. And then that'll invoke some feelings and then I'll write from there. But it's never the same. It's truly always inspired by an experience, whether that's one that makes me upset, whether that's one that brings me joy. I'll write it and then I'll stay in one sitting, and then I'll just kind of like, I'll show you my notebook, actually. It's like pretty intense, but it'll look like something like this, bunch of like scribbles and scrabbles, and then I kind of just bring it together. It's kind of, I think, like making music in that way, where you kind of just let it kind of come together. So I don't know if that's a real answer, because that I haven't really found a process, but it differs and it depends. But I try to do it in a sitting, and try not to judge myself as I'm writing. And that's a hard thing for me to do because I self-edit as I write, but to truly just let things happen and then kind of like mix and match and like a puzzle piece almost.
Ghost is starting to be a little fanboy too.
Yeah.
Rachel says, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Ghost needs to join. I guess if you have no questions at this present moment, I'll read another poem. In the meantime, okay. This one is inspired by a poet that I really enjoy, and her name is Nuyorican. And this poem is entitled "When You Fall in Love Again." I think we're living in I think it's called cuffing season, as the youth say. Um, so this whole idea of being in love, and like understanding what that is, but like also, yeah, like just writing the youth, writing about that. So this is when you fall in love again. When you fall in love again, let it be messy. Let it be lit, let it be life, let it be the business, the sauce, the shit, on fleek, on God, on everything. When you fall in love again, let it cry your eyelashes off. Let it FaceTime you for hours. Let it explain to your best friends how cute this new person is. Let it give you wild thoughts and a DJ Khaled key to life. When you fall in love again, exclude the memories of your ex. For each time you were gaslighted because they could not love you out of the dark. When you fall in love again, let it harvest a kaleidoscope of butterflies, an oil painting of the stomach drop you get when they text you back. When you fall in love again, let it be avocado toast in farmers markets, the kind of bumbling electricity that gets you out of the house, out of a brawl with mental illness. When you fall in love again, let it be passing or forever, a coffee shop crush or a walk down the aisle. Water it, feed it, nourish it, grow a love you can only give yourself. One earth and a reason to see you as whole, as holy. That's when you fall in love again. I think I have a question. I'm gonna close these blinds so I can see. Okay. Yay, much better. I think we have a question from Jen. Do you feel like an outcast because you're introverted? I I do, but I don't think of outcast in a negative way. I think of it as rare, and I think of something rare as very beautiful. Um, I think being an introvert, I've learned that it just means that there are moments when I need to be alone to regain energy, to be able to engage with the world, and that's not a bad thing. That's a self-care thing. Being an introvert is, I mean, like an extrovert, again, that's people who they gather energy from being around people. I'm just quite the opposite. And both, again, are okay. Both are forms of self-care. If you need to be around people to have energy, that's beautiful. And you know that. I just know that I need to be in my room by myself for a couple of days to just reset. And that's okay. And I think a lot of my life, I kind of thought of it as a terrible thing. I thought there was something wrong with me, that I was weird or odd. But I've learned to embrace words like weird or odd as like beautiful things. Like I want to be weird. I feel like being normal is boring, and I don't want to be normal. I think we all have stories. Like my story makes me so unique. Every terrible thing that I've been through, every heartbreak, the diagnosis, the depression, like my weird obsession with like Tom Hardy, like all of that like makes me Tanya, and like makes me weird, and that's super, super cool. And I get to write these poems from that perspective. And then I realize, oh wait, like I'm not the only weird one out there, that everyone is learning their own weird. Everyone is weird and has a story that's very unique to them. And it's okay to learn yourself. I learned that I'm an introvert. I learned that I need space to recharge. And that's just, again, another aspect of me that makes me beautiful, and in ways that I can learn how to thrive in this body and in this life. So shout out to my introverts. I think Beyonce is an introvert, by the way. So good company.
That's crazy to me, but I mean, I don't know Beyonce. I believe it.
Yeah. I feel like I feel like on stage, and I feel this for myself, on stage as a poet and I'm performing, I feel like there's a part of me that's very extroverted because I'm like, but like Tanya, like when she's not performing, is very just, And I think Beyonce is like that. I think when she's on stage, you know, she's and then she's like kind of chill, like a Virgo.
Nice. We did have another question. You're blowing up on Facebook Live.
Facebook.
I think it was no, going down. I think it was what are you reading right now? What have you been reading? Yeah.
Great question. I just started it, but I'm reading this book called Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Marie Brown. I just got through literally the intro, which was like 10 or something pages, and I've been crying. So I haven't even gotten to like the first chapter, but a friend had recommended it to me. And it has like really opened my mind to what pleasure is and that I deserve pleasure. I think I've held shame and guilt for so long within my body for so many things, but this book is really opening my ideas as to what pleasure is, not just sexually, but just like pleasure in life, like enjoying like a juicy apple is pleasure, you know? And again, I think pleasure activism is super tied to what self-care is. So if you're like wanting to investigate self-care, I totally recommend Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Marie Brown, because that opens up the idea of what self-care is to a whole new level that is beyond like bubble baths and scented candles and all that cutesy stuff. Like, what is pleasure from like the inside out? What is self-care from the inside out? So Pleasure Activism, Adrienne Marie Brown, definitely recommend.
Love it. I've heard a lot about that book lately from Adani actually, but I won't put her on the spot.
There for some tears. You're like me.
Dominique says that an emergent strategy are really worth checking out.
I found a question.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. From Anonymous. Hello, Anonymous. What type of affirmations or self-soothing do you recommend for dealing with loss? Loss in the way of loss of faith or in government, loss and change of relationships. What is the process of accepting those feelings like for you? So first part, what type of affirmations or self-soothing do you recommend for dealing with loss? So that's a great question. I have a poem in here entitled How to Heal, but speaking largely to loss, I think of loss in this idea of grieving the person I was before I was diagnosed with a literal life-changing illness. So who Tanya was 22 and before was a very different person, 22 till now at 29. And I feel like I lost a part of me. I will never be able to go back to a life where I'm not dealing with lupus. Like that will never be possible. And that was a really hard pill to swallow, being. And so for me, that is loss, grieving a person that I'll never get to know again. And that's a hard thing. And again, I think loss in general, when we lose a person, when we lose other things, but specifically that's how I engage with loss and grief. I think here we talk about loss in our government, faith in our government. And I wrote about this recently on Instagram, how I've been feeling just kind of like down about the country, just sad, like a deep, deep sadness for this country that I can't totally process or understand. And yeah, sorry for that construction, North Hollywood. But I think the process, again, of accepting these feelings is being vulnerable with all of it. So expressing if I don't understand, expressing if like right now I'm like really, really sad about it, but also I have like a slither of hope. Like all of those things are how I accept it. Either in terms of government, myself, like I try to, and again, with these poems, they're not picture perfect poems. They're poems that are like, here's the mess, like deal with the mess, deal with the good. And all of that is how I learn to accept. and be vulnerable. Again, this idea of getting close and getting intimate with your fears, with loss, with grief, with doubt, with anxiety, with depression. Get intimate with it, where it's not bigger than you. And I think that's how I specifically learned how to accept things, get intimate with it so that it's on my level, that I meet my fears where they're at. I meet my grief, my loss, my sadness where it's at, so that now it's a conversation between this thing and I, and it's not dominant. It doesn't mean that I fix the problem or anything. It just means that I'm in conversation with it, and that allows me to accept it and to work with it and to navigate. Do you have other Facebook Live questions? Do you have about, I guess, like 10-ish minutes?
Yes, we do have another question.
Okay.
What advice do you give to young writers? I know some of the folks here work with young people, and Urbana is starting its first youth poet laureate program.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations on that. That's awesome. My first step, or my first advice, would be to read. And that's advice for any writer. Just read whatever draws you in. I think writers are because of their reading, whatever you're reading. But secondly, like, tell your story. I think that's like the best advice. Like, truly be honest about your story. My roommate, who's an awesome poet, he says that the best form of poetry is honesty, and I wholeheartedly agree. Tell your honest story, unedited, unfiltered. Tell your truth, because that, again, I think really helps you cultivate your voice, helps you like work through whatever, but truly is what makes you special. And I say that again from my own personal experience. The poems I even wrote before How to Survive Today, a lot of those poems were about, me dealing with like growing up in the Bronx and like being teased because of X, Y, and Z, or like seeing like my brothers go through like the school to prison pipeline, and like that was devastating to me, and the only way for me to process that was to write about it. Excuse me. Or like my mother going through like really hard times in a relationship. In order for me to understand that, like, I had to write about it. So being honest in your truth, I think that's the best advice I can give, because the rest, like learning how to like craft the metaphor or like form, all of that, like, can be easily taught. We learn that in school, but what we aren't taught, at least what I wasn't taught in school, is how to tell your story. And like how to own your story, be honest in that. I think my favorite writers, Maya Angelou, like Buddy Wakefield and Lucille Clifton, telling their stories. Some of my favorite poets are my friends because they're honest in their truths and like who they are. I feel like I wouldn't have the voice I have today without being honest in my story, and knowing that like there's someone else out there who can relate. So yeah, that's my best advice for you, especially for young writers. Tell your truth.
I love it. Just as a follow-up, since we are the Small Press Fest, how did you go about finding a publisher and getting your voice out there?
Yes. So the three publishers I've been with, so I've had 3 books. All 3 have been actually small press books, which have been really, really awesome. And I've been really blessed to be approached by all 3. The process with each all of them have been intimate, which I appreciate from a small press. This whole idea of like us just getting to know me as a person, getting to know like what are my dreams, my aspirations for my work, I think is truly special. I have never worked with a larger press, but I just, knowing that from what I've worked with the 3 that I have, just that intimate level of who are you, Tanya? What's your story? Who do you want to reach? What story you want to tell? Has been truly beautiful. My latest collaboration with Wild Awake, I think, is my favorite because Jenny, Claire, Rachel, and Jen, like they all really are intimate with my work and they want to know, like, what are my dreams? Like, where do I see this book going? And that level of communication is truly important. And I think that's the best thing I've gotten by working with small press. So I've been, again, thankful that I've been reached out to work with. But yeah, that's how that process is usually gone. And we're still working now to like find ways to continue to like get it out there. And like the fact that this is happening is a beautiful way. Like the 30 days of self-care, like that's become a tool that other like agencies want to use. So like we're finding ways to like to not have this again be like a cute little book, you know, because it's small, it's cute, it's catchy, but no, that there's like actual meaning and like something that's applicable to every human. Like this book is for humans, you know, this to speak to where you're at. And this whole idea of, I like to think of myself as a poet, but like I'm more of your friend. Like, how can I be a friend to you? And I think I can do that best through poetry. And so working with small press, publications like Wild Awake allows me to tell that story and to have that reach. So I'm really grateful. Really grateful.
This is a very cool book too. I wasn't expecting it when I got it, but I mean, it's like a workbook. Like you have to, you know, like in a very, you know, gentle, approachable way. But yeah, I was like, I need to dig into this more.
Yeah, that makes me happy. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think the next thing I want to do is a cookbook, like a cookbook poetry book. I don't know how. That's like something else I want to do.
Yeah, we just had a presentation by a local student group at the university about non-conventional storytelling, and they talked about food as a way to tell stories. And I guess pasta sauce has been like historically, like the spiciness of it was generally like how mad like a wife was at her husband or something.
Oh Lord! Oh wow! I never knew that.
I mean, I believe it. And there's there was like 30 different kinds of bread from her home country, and they all tell a different story. So it's very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Yeah.
um, are there other, we have 5 minutes left. This is going fast. Are there any other questions or?
No more questions on my end, nor that I see. I have time, I guess, for like a question, but if not, again, I can put in the chat, but if you want access to the 30 Days of Self-Care Challenge, again, that's totally free. And we've made it more pandemic safe or just pandemic friendly because certain things, you know, we can't do. So I'll type that. It's in my website at tonyaingram.com, and it should pop up immediately. But if we don't have any more questions, I can end with a poem. And again, thank you for having me. And this really means a lot to be able to just talk about this book.
Yeah, I'm a little starstruck. I was like, oh my gosh, you responded.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. As someone who's super, you know, introverted, that means a lot. Okay. I don't know how I want to heal. You know what? I will read this poem, which is How to Heal. Again, I think someone had brought up the idea of loss and grief, and I think we're in a moment where like healing like means so many things right now. Like, how do we heal as a country? How do we heal as people? And so, yeah, this is How to Heal. And if there is another question, I think we have time. But if not, thank y'all. Yeah, How to Heal. Think of the heartbreak, the doctor's visit, the day you wished was over. Remember how small the world felt, how easy it was to not return to yourself. Marvel at your hands for everything they open. Light a candle, recite Michelle Obama, make a smoothie, fill it with the fruits of your ancestors with a sweetness worth keeping, block the account. Do not look at the photo of your ex and their new love at the beach, on the grass. And where you failed, instead, tell yourself you belong here. To the church of Lizzo and better days, open the windows and put the laundry away. There is a buffet of possibilities with your name on it, a bed of pillows waiting for your arrival. Healing is not linear, not a competition. It is all we hold sacred, how we call on tomorrow while leaning on today. That is how to heal, friends. Thank y'all so much for having me. I truly appreciate it. I hope that the book continues to mean something. I hope this talk meant something. And I hope that you know that you're not alone, whatever you're going through, that you are seen, that you're loved, that I'm proud of you. I think, again, a lot of this work was birthed from the idea that sometimes I didn't hear like I was loved or I was appreciated or valued. And so I think a lot of what I write is meeting, you know, 13-year-old Tanya or 5-year-old Tanya or 20 or 22 and reminding her like, wow, you were always loved. And so I hope that this work and who I am as a person, who I am as a poet continues to like remind people that you're loved, that you're not alone. And I just want to say thank you so much, Sarah, for having me. Yeah, I wish I could just give you all hugs. I'll give you a virtual hug.
This felt like a big hug, so thank you. And yeah, Tanya put her website in the chat so you can find the 30 Days of Self-Care and her book as well. And then I think your Instagram handle is just Tanya Instagram. Is that it?
All right. Yeah, it's very, creative. It's not at all. My last name is Ingram, so I was like, let me just put Instagram. Yes, that is my Instagram handle. I love making friends, so don't feel afraid to say hello to me. But yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Have a great night. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.